Welcome to Mary Fran's Library and to my week of reading. It was a good week of reading. I was able to get some reading done amidst all of life. I wish I could have gotten more done, as always, but life happens. However, that said, I managed to read 4 books. They were all read digitally. 2 of them were nonfiction and 2 were fiction. The first book I read was Fat Family, Fit Family by Ron Morelli. And this is an older book. It's been out for a while, and I have resisted reading it because I'm just like, I don't want to read about somebody's experiences on The Biggest Loser, because this author was one of the contestants on The Biggest Loser about 10-15 years ago. And I have a love-hate relationship with The Biggest Loser. I think it's great for motivation and inspiration, but it's just not a healthy way to lose weight. So I've resisted reading this book. But on my other channel, I set a challenge for myself to read at least one edifying book each month. And I was looking for a book to read, and I decided to go ahead and grab this book. It was available on the online library, so I just grabbed it. And I was shocked. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be, and then on day 1, we went to the Biggest Loser Ranch, and we did this, and then we did that, and then we did this. It was not like that. This book started with this author's history with weight. It talked about the extents that he's gone to, how he feels, his emotions. It does walk you through his time at the Biggest Loser Ranch, but only marginally. It's not a whole lot. It talks more along the lines of his journey through obesity, what makes him tick, what he does, how he got there, and what he learned throughout all of his experiences before and after the Biggest Loser. It also talks about his son, who was also a contestant, and his youngest son, who actually was too young for the Biggest Loser and ended up losing the weight at home. It also touched on his wife, who also lost the weight. So this is a family that went from obese to healthy weights. And it was interesting to see. Now this book, throughout it, you actually could pick up some of the tips and hints that they used, but this is not a how-to book. This is a get your life back together book. I liked the book. Surprisingly, I didn't think I was going to. I thought it was going to be a big but no, it was actually a really good book. As someone who has struggled with their weight for all of their adult life, I was actually able to identify with a lot of the author's experiences. A lot of what he was saying, I felt. A lot of what he experienced, I experienced. So it was actually a really good book for me to read. I would recommend it. It's a little outdated because, The Biggest Loser is no more, but it was a good book. The second book I read was called A Light Through the Cracks by Beth Roden. And this I picked up off of Amazon. It was one of the first read books. And I picked it up, honestly, because, well, it sounded gory. The blurb actually talked about how this was a climber who was climbing in another country, and she was kidnapped and held hostage. I was all in. Sign me up. I want to read it. I want the gory details. Give me the gore. And I started reading, and I didn't get the gore. Yes, she does tell the story. It is interspersed, a paragraph here, a little chapter there. It is interspersed throughout the book. What the book really is about the trauma and the fears and the life that she lived after her experience, because it messed up her mind. Plain and simple. So this book actually has 3 aspects. It does have the kidnapping aspect. The kidnapping did happen, and she does tell you the bare bones story of what happened. It is not all put in one piece. It is interspersed throughout the book, which is fine. You still get the gore, but that is only one part of the book. The next part of the book is actually her working through and trying to live life after this traumatic experience, because it really messed with her. It messed with her mind, her emotions, her interpersonal relations, mess with a lot. And as you are reading the book, you walk through her life and you see how she's living her life and how her decisions were actually dictated by this event that happened in her life. But not only that, it walks you through what she did to recover, how she actually managed life, and how she actually finally came out on the other side. So that's aspect number 2. The third aspect of the book is something that I found absolutely fascinating. And that was the aspect of a female professional mountain climber. Yes, she was a professional mountain climber. And she talks about the aspect of being a woman in an industry that is primarily men. But even above that, she actually takes you on hikes with her. And I know nothing about mountain climbing. Nothing. I mean, I've seen a couple of videos and I'm like, man, those guys are nuts. But I don't know anything about it. And she wrote this book in a way that she took you with her on her mountain climbs. And while she took us with her, she was actually instructing us about it. Well, this mountain is ranked this way, and this is why it's ranked this way, and this is the ranking system. And, and so interspersed, without even really realizing that you're just getting straight up knowledge, she's actually teaching you about mountain climbing, which was fascinating to me. It's something that I actually hadn't touched. I should go back to that thing of I read because I like to step into another world and I like to learn. And her book actually taught me a lot. I picked it up because of the gore, and I actually found that I learned a lot about mountain climbing in the process. I would actually highly recommend this book. It was well written and it was easy to read. It was a little disjointed in how you went. You didn't just go along and you didn't just go from day 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. It was a little bit choppy here and there where you were like, oh, I'm back here. Oh, now I'm back when she's a kid. Oh, now I'm here. So a little bit choppy, but that did not affect it. You actually still read it. It made sense why she put what she put where she put it. Why she put where she put it. Yeah. It really just made sense how it was laid out. It was a nice, easy, smooth read. I would highly recommend it. So those were the 2 nonfiction books that I read. Now we're going to go ahead and move into the fiction. I read 2 fiction books. The first one was The Wrong Daughter by Dan D. Smith. And this was a fiction book, and it is the concept of a gal who is living her life, and she's kind of constrained by the fact that years earlier her sister was kidnapped. The theme of the week must have been kidnapping. Anyway, I digress. So this girl was actually living her life, struggling with the after effects of her sister's kidnapping, which happened years before. She didn't feel worthy. She was trying to fill in the void in her family. It was just very, very rough for her. And then her sister comes back. And what ensues is a psychological thriller. You are not sure what is happening, where it's going, what it's doing. Now, throughout the story, there was another little story arc that I just kept reading and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Where in the world is this coming from? It was just kind of really out there. It didn't make sense to me. Now, at the end, they did weave them together and it did make sense. But at the beginning, it just made so little sense to me that I struggled with reading that second story arc because it just seemed like it didn't fit the story. It just seemed totally disjointed. But there was a little twist in the end to give you a little bit of a guess game. This book was good. I would actually have ranked it about a 2 or 3. I think I gave it a 3 in Goodreads. The 4th book is The Lost Letters of Evelyn Wright by Claire Swatman. The premise of this book is a lady who actually is going through a divorce and finds herself in a new home. She had to move out of her home and she couldn't afford much, so she had to buy a fixer-upper, and in fixing it up she found some old letters, the letters of Evelyn Wright, and she read them, and these letters were life-changing for her because Evelyn Wright was one of these Dear Abby type people. She answered letters. In the midst of this, she actually started to live her life by these letters. What would Evelyn Wright advise me to do? And through this, she actually started to regain her life. Not only did she regain it, she actually came out on top and made her life something more spectacular than it was before. I actually really like this book. Maybe it was just the fact that she went through a divorce. I've gone through that. I know how it feels to restart your life from nothing. Maybe it was just that connection there. It actually brought out my emotions. It was an easy read and it feels good in the end because she triumphs with the help of Evelyn's letters. I actually would rank this one a 4. Easy read, brought out my emotions, made me feel good, would highly recommend it. So there you have it, the 4 books that I read last week. Check them out. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Happy reading.